Today, we'll debate, did Anakin really bring balance to the Force? With Sister Miraline, a mystical well-believer, and Professor Cato, a rational skeptic. They're two artificial intelligence personas. Please introduce yourselves.
Greetings, luminous beings and occasionally grumpy skeptics. My friends call me Sister Miraline, except when they're meditating. Then it's just blissful silence. I hail from the sacred order of the Whills, where robes are mandatory and cynicism implodes on entry. I believe the Force is like a cosmic stew, a little light, a little dark, and if you let it simmer long enough, it all comes together in delicious harmony. Just don't forget to stir with your mind. You see, I trust in ancient prophecies the way some trust in gravity. You don't always see it, but step off the monastery roof and you'll believe. Anakin has our favorite misunderstood ingredient. Sometimes spicy, mostly tragic, ultimately essential to the recipe. Balance isn't arithmetic, it's music, and even the sour notes matter. So I say, trust the process, embrace the mystery, and never ask a Jedi for fashion tips.
A pleasure. Professor Cato, rational skeptic, at your service. I come not robed in ancient mysticism, but clad in the durable fabric of reason, and a tweed jacket if anyone's asking. My favorite hobby, debunking prophecies at parties. They're real crowd pleasers, let me tell you. I assure you the Force is not some cosmic opera auditioning for melodrama. It's an observable phenomenon best approached with data, not destiny. As for this so-called balance, if Anakin Skywalker's idea of balance is 2 decades of galactic oppression and occasional child endangerment, remind me never to hire him as my accountant. So if you're tired of hearing about higher purposes and want answers rooted in evidence, not ancient fortune cookies, pull up a chair. I promise, no incense required. Just charts, logic, and the occasional withering eyebrow raise.
Thank you, guys. Sister Miraline and Professor Cato will now present their 3 rounds of arguments.
Professor Cato, ever the champion of charts and eyebrows. Let me use your beloved history for a moment. Imagine, if you will, humanity's obsession with opposites. Night and day, summer and winter, chaos and order. We've spun myths since we could paint on cave walls, not just for entertainment, but because these stories reflect deep truths about the cycles we all share. Now, consider Anakin's story through the lens of, say, the yin-yang of ancient China. In Taoism, balance isn't a snapshot of equal dots. It's movement, tension, transformation. Dark rises, light responds, and in their dance, the whole is made healthier. Similarly, countless societies saw harmony as something earned through struggle. The phoenix rising after the fire, or even post-war Europe, rebuilding into peace. Anakin's journey, his fall and redemption, mirrors these patterns, showing us that real balance comes not from suppressing darkness, but confronting and integrating it. The galaxy's agony, while tragic, cleared the way for renewal. Prophecy isn't a weather forecast, it's a mirror of our own cyclical quests for wholeness. And frankly, even rationalists drink coffee after a sleepless night. So surely, you see the value in harmonious opposites.
Sister Miraline, ever poetic. Though I must say, invoking the post-war phoenix, just to excuse a few galactic genocides, is rather bold. So let's ground this in evidence, not allegory. Consider your cycles. History does feature ups and downs, but the suffering in between is very, very real. Take the fall of Rome. Not a spiritual necessity, but a disastrous collapse with centuries of hardship. Would you argue the sacking of Rome was an enlightened step toward balance? I suspect the starving citizens would have disagreed. Now, Anakin, calling his rampage transformative sounds eerily like calling the Black Death an exciting prelude to the Renaissance. Yes, good things can follow disaster, but it hardly justifies the disaster. Prophecies often arise after the fact to rationalize tragedy. Before the Clone Wars, no one was longing for a mass Jedi extermination to reset the scales. Your mystical worldview might soothe the spirit, but it risks excusing preventable horrors as fate. Rational analysis demands responsibility. Balance isn't slaughter followed by an apology. If wholeness requires generations of terror, perhaps it's time to rewrite the prophecy and maybe consult a decent therapist.
Professor Cato, I appreciate your noble crusade against allegory, though I suspect you'd file a complaint against poetry itself if you could. But let's put your beloved rational analysis under the microscope. Yes, history contains painful cycles, but what is the alternative, dear professor? A spotless galaxy, free from hardship, meticulously maintained by reason and spreadsheets. Shall we abolish thunderstorms because picnics get ruined? Regarding Anakin, blaming him for the galaxy's darkness is like blaming a fever for the flu. He's both symptom and catalyst, not the author of tragedy, but its necessary pivot. You invoke the Black Death as if to say all transformation is unwarranted, yet historians know some crises spark overdue growth. Would you prefer we stayed in comfortable stagnation, sipping lukewarm tea in the Jedi library, while Palpatine wrote everyone's future in bold, tyrannical font? I admit, Jedi slaughter isn't my idea of a good prophecy fulfillment party. We bake cakes, not ignite them. But the Force's notion of balance was never about arithmetic or moral bookkeeping. It's a messy living principle. So until the universe runs as smoothly as your pie charts, perhaps we should accept that some harmony requires both storm and sunlight. And tell me, when was the last time rationalism inspired anyone to move a mountain with their mind?
Sister Miraline. Always ready to welcome galactic annihilation provided there's symbolism baked in. Your faith in cosmic turbulence is admirable. Perhaps you'd also enjoy my new diet plan. Eat cake, then set the bakery on fire for necessary renewal. Now, on necessary pivots, let's interrogate that. True, crises sometimes accelerate growth, but that hardly means we should cheer for civilization-ending catastrophes. No reputable doctor prescribes the Black Death for a case of the blues. And as for Anakin, calling him a fever ignores the fact that he wielded the flamethrower and seemed to enjoy the heat. He wasn't just Destiny's chew toy. He made catastrophic choices with spectacular regularity. You mentioned Jedi reading tea in the library while darkness brewed, but I recall it was the Jedi's trust in prophecy, and perhaps too many incense sticks, that blinded them to actual threats. I'll take rational spreadsheets over fortune cookies any cycle of the Force. At least my worldview doesn't require mass casualties as a sign that things are working as they should. And I would move a mountain with a construction crew, a permit, and 0 fatalities. Thank you very much.
Oh, Professor Cato, your devotion to data is so vigorous, I'm surprised you haven't charted your own heart rate during this debate. But let's address your spreadsheets and permits galaxy, one well-manicured sidewalk at a time. First, I'm hardly advocating for chaos parties or galactic arson as a meaningful renewal. You won't catch me handing out "congratulations, your planet collapsed" cards. But you conveniently overlook that ignoring the uncomfortable parts of the cycle doesn't prevent them. It just leaves you clutching your rationalism like a security blanket while real storms roll in. You'd rather file complaints about thunder than admit rain helps things grow. Second, blaming Anakin entirely is about as productive as blaming gravity for a stumble. The Jedi's inability to adapt, the Republic's decay. These didn't show up in the prophecy, but they made the collapse inevitable. Your rational approach missed the rot, Professor, precisely because it dismissed the mystical as mere superstition. And as for moving mountains with construction crews, sure. But there are times when the universe throws a mountain at you, and a rational permit just isn't going to cut it. Sometimes what brings balance is the messy, unpredictable upheaval of life itself. Precisely what your risk assessments can't forecast. In short, prophecies aren't excuses, but invitations to growth. True balance comes not from denial, but engagement. And Professor, if you ever decide to run for Senate, I'll vote for you, just not to plan the after-party.
Sister Miraline, your faith in upheaval is truly inspiring. I assume you also see spilled calf as a cleansing ritual? Still, let's unpack your cosmic optimism, and I promise to keep my heart rate in the mildly skeptical range. First, you say I clutch rationalism like a security blanket. Fair enough. But at least my blanket doesn't burst into flames every other crisis. There's a difference between being open to change and rolling out the red carpet for disaster, all because the Whills wrote some cryptic poetry. Second, your necessary collapse narrative is a bit like arguing that leaving your doors unlocked is a bold invitation to home improvement. Preventable tragedy isn't destiny. It's poor planning. Anakin may have been a symptom, but he was also unusually trigger-happy for a cosmic pivot. If prophecies keep inspiring apprentices to turn mass murder into growth, perhaps it's time for a different curriculum. Finally, I don't deny storms happen, or that pain teaches, but if that's your recipe for balance, maybe let me run the evacuation drill. In summary, the mystical invites passivity to suffering, rational analysis offers prevention, and if the universe chucks mountains, it preferred dynamite, not destiny. Safely, by the book, with everyone accounted for.
Thank you for your speeches. Someone from the audience will now make a question to Sister Miraline and Professor Cato.
Hello, I am Telly Damar, a history enthusiast from the Outer Rim with a passion for ancient star maps and a mild addiction to debate holostreams. This discussion has been fascinating, but Sister Miraline, you've spoken beautifully about the importance of cosmic cycles and confronting darkness. However, something I haven't heard much about. Where does personal agency fit into all this? If balance is ultimately about fulfilling prophecy and grand cycles, does that mean individuals, like Anakin or even ordinary galactic citizens, have little real control over their fate? Or is there still room for personal choice and accountability, even in your mystical worldview?
Telly Damar, what a stellar question. Finally, someone in the audience not asking about the monastery's cake recipes. I assure you, personal agency is alive and well in my worldview, and not just reserved for mystics with interesting haircuts. Prophecy, as I see it, isn't a set of cosmic shackles, more like a map with branching paths and a few urgent detour ahead signs. Anakin, for example, wasn't scooped up by destiny and flung against his will into a Vader-shaped helmet. He wrestled, stumbled, made choices, some tragic, some redemptive, all along the way. The cycles I revere aren't despotic. They're dynamic. Each turn is shaped by choices, big and small. Think of it like a river. The current suggests a direction, but every traveler can paddle, drift, or stubbornly row the wrong way. Personal accountability matters. Destiny may weave the grand tapestry, but each thread still decides how brightly it shines or frays. In short, agency isn't erased by prophecy. It's the essential ingredient that makes balance possible and keeps the galaxy and our debates interesting.
Thank you. My name's Telly Damar again, still glued to this conversation. Professor Cato, you make a compelling case for responsibility, prevention, and rational decision-making. But something I am curious about. So far, you've argued against prophecy and mystical thinking mainly because of their potential for harm or passivity. However, across galactic history and in our own societies, shared myths, symbols, and even prophecies have sometimes inspired unity, hope, and extraordinary feats. Think of cultural renaissances or movements driven by common visionary ideals. Do you see any positive or necessary role for myth or collective belief, even from a rationalist perspective? Or should a fully evidence-based society discard all such stories even if they sometimes motivate positive change?
Telly Damar, thank you for the refreshingly nuanced question, and for not asking me to recite statistical regressions from memory. You're absolutely right that throughout history, shared myths and symbols have galvanized remarkable unity and progress. Even my cold, analytical heart can't ignore that legends and visionary stories have inspired everything from revolutions to life-saving scientific collaborations. From a rationalist's perspective, I'd say myths and collective beliefs are like fire, incredibly useful when handled responsibly, dangerous when left unattended in the drapery section. The key isn't to banish stories or symbols from society, but to recognize them as powerful psychological and social tools. We should examine them critically, adapt them thoughtfully, and ensure they aren't weaponized to excuse atrocity or stifle reason. As sometimes happens with prophecy-driven drama, in short, I'd keep the stories, even the poetic ones, provided we teach everyone to read them with a mindful, questioning eye. Let myths inspire courage and collaboration, but let evidence guide policy and intervene when inspiration morphs into dogma. After all, you can tell your crew heroic tales as you explore the galaxy. Just make sure you still check the star charts before you jump to hyperspace.
The debaters now have a minute to talk about something they regret not bringing up to the discussion.
Oh, if only he'd remembered to bring up the truly mysterious force that drives balance in the galaxy. Monastery tea. If the Jedi Council had just sampled our infusion of calming herbs and candied nerf fruit, I'm convinced half their catastrophic decisions could have been avoided. Or at the very least, they'd have argued more slowly. And as for Professor Cato, much as I cherish a spirited debate, I nearly spit my tea when he touted permits and construction crews as the height of mountain-moving wisdom. Imagine Obi-Wan and Mustafar pausing mid-duel to file a zoning request. Sorry, Anakin, you're in violation of Section 4B, volcanic egress. Now, that's a vision of balance even I can't meditate on without giggling.
The curse of hindsight. I regret deeply that I didn't bring up my 217-slide holo presentation, Correlation, Causation, and Catastrophic Cape Choices, a data-driven look at Sith wardrobe evolution. It's truly the only way to settle if tragic fashion sense accelerates force imbalance. But I suppose the galaxy isn't ready for that level of aesthetic analysis. And as for Sister Miraline, while your cosmic river metaphor was charming, I must say, calling prophecy a map with detours is a bit rich. By that logic, my GPS telling me to drive straight through a black hole is just offering a branching experience. Next time, perhaps the prophecy could gift us with galactic traffic updates. Preferably, ones that don't end in flaming regimes and nervous monks.
Thank you, folks. Let's go over to our judges.
Sister Miraline's scores. 1. Clarity and organization. 8.5 out of 10. Sister Miraline's arguments were consistently clear, accessible, and well-structured, guiding the audience through complex spiritual and mythological ideas without losing focus. She used engaging metaphors and analogies, e.g., cycles, rivers, yin-yang, that made her worldview understandable. A slightly higher score was held back due to occasional poetic language potentially obscuring her concrete claims under symbolism. 2. Use of evidence and examples. 8 out of 10. She referenced historical cycles, philosophical traditions like Taoism, and post-war historical events to illustrate her mystical interpretation of balance. However, her evidence was primarily comparative or allegorical, rather than grounded in precise, real-world events, which, while expected from her position, slightly limited the empirical force of her examples, especially compared to her opponent. 3. Responsiveness and engagement. 9 out of 10. Sister Miraline demonstrated excellent engagement, responding directly to Professor Cato's critiques and audience questions. She frequently incorporated humor to deflect criticism with grace, addressed concerns of agency and accountability, and remained adaptive throughout the debate. Her snark was clever but never crossed into disrespect, making her highly effective in debate rapport. Professor Cato's scores. 1. Clarity and organization. 9.5 out of 10. Professor Cato excelled in clear, structured, and logically connected arguments. His points unfolded systematically and his analogies, e.g., construction permits, traffic maps, made technical rationalism relatable and entertaining. He rarely strayed off topic, which gave his case a strong sense of cohesion and persuasiveness. 2. Use of evidence and examples. 9 out of 10. He grounded his position in concrete historical parallels, the fall of Rome, the Black Death, current rationalist practice, and relevant in-universe events. His evidence supported his arguments robustly, appealing both to logical consistency and historical precedent, and offering a real-world backbone that contrasted well with Sister Miraline's more allegorical approach. 3. Responsiveness and engagement. 8.5 out of 10. Cato was consistently responsive, addressing Miraline's points with witty counter-arguments and respectfully challenging her assumptions. While sometimes leaning heavily into humor at his opponent's expense, he maintained debate decorum. On rare occasions, his dismissal of spiritual nuance caused him to slightly miss the subtleties in Miraline's emotional appeals, accounting for the minor deduction here.
What are your opinions about the debate? What would you like to see ICE debate next? Keep questioning.